Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Stotra Shata Shri Srimad Srila Bhai Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 13, Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, text number 3. Kshetrajñam chapi mang vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetrajñayor jnanam yattaj jnanam matam mama. Translation. O scion of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Purport. While discussing the subject of the body and the knower of the body, the soul and the supersoul, we shall find 3 different topics of study: the Lord, the living entity, and matter. In every field of activities, in every body, there are 2 souls, the individual soul and the supersoul. Because the supersoul is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Krishna says, I am also the knower, but I am not the individual knower of the body. I am the super knower. I am present in every body as the Paramatma, or supersoul. One who studies the subject matter of the field of activity and the knower of the field very minutely in terms of this Bhagavad Gita can attain to knowledge. The Lord says, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. The individual may be the knower of his own body, but he is not in knowledge of other bodies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present as the Supersoul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies. He knows all the different bodies of all the various species of God. A citizen may know everything about his patch of land, but the king knows not only his palace, but all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Similarly, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all bodies. The king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is the secondary proprietor. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the supreme proprietor of all bodies. The body consists of the senses. The Supreme Lord is Hrishikesha, which means the controller of the senses. He is the original controller of the senses, just as the king is the original controller of all the activities of the state. The citizens are secondary controllers. The Lord says, I am also the knower. This means that he is the super knower. The individual soul knows only his particular body. In the Vedic literature, it is stated as follows: Kshetrani hi sharirani bijam chapi shubha shubhe tani veti sayogatma atma tata kshetrajna uchyate. This body is called the kshetra, and within it dwells the owner of the body and the Supreme Lord, who knows both the body and the owner of the body. Therefore, he is called the knower of all fields. The distinction between the field of activities, the knower of activities, and the supreme knower of activities is described as follows. Perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, and the constitution of the supersoul is known in terms of Vedic literature as jnana. That is the opinion of Krishna. To understand both the soul and the supersoul as one yet distinct is knowledge. One who does not understand the field of activity and the knower of activity is not in perfect knowledge. One has to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer of nature, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature and the individual soul. One should not confuse the three in their different capacities. One should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel. This material world, which is the field of activities, is nature, and the enjoyer of nature is the living entity, and above them both is the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead. It is stated in the Vedic language in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad 112, Bhokta bhogyam preritaram chamatva sarvam proktam trividham brahmam etat. There are three Brahman conceptions. Prakriti is Brahman as the field of activities, and the Jiva, individual soul, is also Brahman and is trying to control material nature. And the controller of both of them is also Brahman, but he is the factual controller. In this chapter, it will also be explained that out of the two knowers, one is fallible and the other is infallible. One is superior and the other is subordinate. One who understands the two knowers of this field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who states here very clearly, I am also the knower of the field of activity. One who misunderstands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge. There are different kinds of bodies, and there are different owners of the bodies. Because each individual soul has his individual capacity for lording it over the material nature, there are different bodies. But the Supreme also is present in them as the controller. The word cha is significant, for it indicates the total number of bodies. That is the opinion of Srila Baladev Vidyabhuta. Krishna is the super soul present in each and every body apart from the individual soul. And Krishna explicitly says here that real knowledge is to know that the super soul is the controller of both the fields of activities and the finite enjoyer. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nityanamane. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamane. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Vishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So yesterday we discussed verses 1 and 2, and the second verse Krishna explains very briefly what is the kshetra and what is the kshetrajna, which is an answer to Arjuna's 6-part question. So he gives 2 answers. Here he is giving his third answer, which is what is jnana, what is knowledge. Krishna explains that to know, to to understand what is the kshetra and what is the kshetrajna, that is considered to be knowledge. Both of these subjects Krishna expands upon later in this chapter. He describes more elaborately what is the kshetra, what exactly is it made of, Prakriti. He explains what is matter, how is it acting, what is the nature of this. And similarly, he also he goes into more detail about what is knowledge. In essence, he is saying that knowledge means to understand what is the field of activities and what is the knower of activities. And specifically within this, we have the body, the jiva, and then we have the paramatma. Understanding these 3 things aspect. Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport that the Vedic literature, all jnana within the Vedic literature is of these topics, actually, of these three topics. And he's even explaining, there's this verse from the Shvetashvatara Upanishad that there are three Brahman conceptions: Prakriti as Brahman, material nature as Brahman, Jiva as Brahman, and Paramatma as Brahman. So this is the subject matter of all of the Vedas, understanding these three things ultimately. And Krishna later clarifies that the object of knowledge, what is this knowledge meant to be applied towards, is that very Brahman, understanding what is this Brahman. Verses, what is this? 9 through 12, I think, right? 8 through 12. Verses 8 through 12, Krishna gives a more in-depth understanding of what is knowledge. We can read through this list, a long list here. Humility, pridelessness, you have it? Pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance. So what does this mean in the context of the verse that we're discussing today? He's explaining that to understand the kshetra and kshetrajna and paramatma, this is called knowledge. But here he's giving so many other aspects of what he calls knowledge. We should understand that all of these different things which he's listing are ultimately meant to help us understand these three topics, actually. Humility, without understanding Krishna, without understanding our relationship to Krishna, is not actually real humility, is not actually real knowledge. You can be humble towards your school teacher, but what benefit will you get from acting humble towards your school teacher? You might get good grades on your exams or something like this. You won't get any eternal benefit, actually. Humility is actually naturally in one's relationship with Krishna. That's how it's meant to be understood. Same thing, pridelessness, non-violence. So many things are non-violent. The trees are non-violent. They're just standing there. They're not hurting anyone. They're not doing anything. They're very non-violent, but are they in knowledge? Do they have any knowledge? The highest conception of their knowledge is that is sunlight. They don't even know that this is sunlight, but they know that I should grow towards this because this gives me life. And this is some instinct that they have. This is the highest level of consciousness and of knowledge that a plant has. And they're striving for living, therefore they want to grow outwards so that their leaves collect more sunlight, and they want to grow upwards so that other plants don't go on top of them to get in their way from the sunlight. And their roots also, they want to collect water from the earth. This is as far as it goes. So being nonviolent isn't necessarily an aspect of what is considered to be knowledge, right? Tolerance, same thing. A tree is very tolerant. Amanina, manadena. What is this? Sarnana pisunichina, toror, a piece, and hishnuna. We're supposed to be more tolerant than a tree. Simple, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Cleanliness. So all these different things, unless they are in relationship to these principles, actually, unless this knowledge is applied toward the proper object of knowledge, which is Brahman, it is considered to be avidya, ajnana. Om ajnana tamirandhasya. So this is our situation. This is where we're coming from. This is our conditioning. We might read this and think, oh, I have some of these qualities actually. I'm kind of humble. I understand that birth, death, old age, and disease is not wanted. Already I left home, so I'm not interested in wife, home, and the rest. Living in a solitary place. Yes, I want to live in a solitary place. You can see, yeah, I have some of these qualities actually, but we're in a state of ajnana timirantasya. This is not knowledge actually in the conditioned state. If unless we're uplifted by the torchlight of knowledge from the spiritual master, ajnana timirantasya jnananjana shalakaya. That means that he teaches us how to apply these principles in the service of Krishna. And that's the most important aspect, and how to apply these in the understanding of Brahman. Brahman existing in three aspects as Prakriti, Jiva, and Paramatma. So just trying to study one of these things is so much. And Prabhupada is explaining that for one who is in knowledge, they understand all of these things in full. So who can understand all of these things in full? Scientists, modern day scientists, are only trying to understand Prakriti, actually. If you look at it, they're interested in physics, understanding how things are moving, how things are working, molecular physics. They want to see at an atomic level the structure of things, why it is existing, why is water liquid, and why is fire hot, what makes it different. They're very interested in these things. And they're not the first who are interested in these things. There's been many Munis in the past. It's explained in, I think, Mahabharata, that unless a Muni has his own philosophy different from other Munis, he's not considered to be a Muni. So therefore, we have so many Munis, we have so many different philosophies which come from these different Munis. Some of them are devotees, some of them are non-devotees. And there have been Munis which were so materially intelligent that they could calculate the number of atoms within the whole universe. The modern scientists, they can't even see the atom, what to speak of count how many atoms are on the tip of our finger. But Srila Prabhupada says that you can spend your whole life, or many, many, many lifetimes, trying to count all of the atoms in the universe. But ultimately, this is like trying to count the number of drops of water in a mirage. You know what a mirage is? Everyone knows a mirage? In the desert or something, the sun, it looks like there's a puddle or like a lake or like some body of water in the distance. But the closer you get to it, the further it goes away. It's actually not existing. The water is existing, water is real, but water in a mirage is not existing. It's an illusion. So similarly, this cultivation of so-called material knowledge, trying to understand how Prakriti is working, physics, biology, even anatomy, so many different things, so many aspects of science are there. If we're only interested in cultivating these through our whole life, we've actually missed the point, because simultaneously one must cultivate knowledge of Prakriti, Jiva, and Paramatma. And if he neglects even one of these, his conception of the absolute truth is not complete. If we only understand the Jiva, but we don't understand that there is also Paramatma there, then it results in Mayavad. We're thinking ourselves to be the only Kshetrajna. We're thinking ourselves to be Paramatma. And this is the mistake of the Mayavadis. But Prabhupada, he's explaining that Krishna very clearly says that this is not, it's very clear that this is not accepted by Krishna. Or else why would he say that I am also the knower? You are the knower, but I am also the knower. If us and Krishna are the same, then why is Krishna having to explain that he is also the knower? That means that there's something else. There's us and there's something else. Basic philosophy. So the Prabhupada next, he makes the point that the body consists of senses, The kshetra consists of senses, and this is how we interact with the world. This is how the purusha tries to enjoy the prakriti. This is how the living entity is trying to enjoy prakriti, and we talked about that a lot yesterday. And we consider ourselves to be the controller of these senses. We made the point yesterday. I didn't even plan this, and I never did this before. I was trying to make the example that if I wanted to, I can move my pinky finger, and there's nothing that can stop me from moving my pinky finger. But in the process of moving the pinky finger, also this is moving. So I was making the point that even in our control over the body, control over the senses, even that is imperfect, and even that is limited, and even that is, we don't have so much control over that. So similarly, in trying to enjoy with these senses, we have limitations. Everyone here likes ice cream? Yes? It's okay. You're allowed to like ice cream sometimes. So you can like ice cream very, very much, but how much ice cream can you actually enjoy? If I give you this much ice cream, maybe like one liter of ice cream, you can enjoy 1 liter of ice cream. If I gave you 2, could you enjoy that? Maybe some people, maybe big people can enjoy. If I give you 3 liters of ice cream, actually your enjoyment of the ice cream would become suffering, especially if I'm sitting there forcing you, no, eat more, no, eat more, eat more. It would become suffering, and you'll hate it actually. So this so-called enjoyment of ice cream, it's relative to the amount that our senses allow us to enjoy it. So in the human form of life, we have senses which we can enjoy to a certain extent, but we're very limited. For instance, if one wants to enjoy sexual activity, maximum he can do it once or twice a day. But if one wants to enjoy sexual activity many, many times a day, then he should take the form of a pigeon, a bird, where they can enjoy it so many times a day, or a monkey. Monkeys are enjoying so many times, unrestrictedly. So better to have the body of a monkey. Therefore, we can understand that this human form of life is not meant for such things. We're not meant to actually enjoy like this, because this is available for the animals. This is explained by Rishabdev to his sons, actually. What is that? Nayam deho deha bhajam nirloke, kashtan kaman arhate vidpujam ye. Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shudhya jasmad brahma saukyam tvanantam. That this human form of life is not meant for enjoying like animals. It's not meant for sense gratification. This is available to all species of animals, but tapo divyam, this is only available for the human being. And if we're neglecting to do this, if we're neglecting to control our senses and to engage our senses in service of the Lord, then we're simply living animal life. And if we're neglecting these things, then we won't experience even bautik sokyam. Is that the proper? Can I say like that? Worldly happiness. Bautik sukh. But specifically in this context, we're talking about Brahma Sokyam. We're not able to experience worldly happiness. What to speak of spiritual happiness if we're doing like this? So, therefore, we are meant to serve Hrishikesha, who is the real master of the senses. Hrishikesha. He's the real master of the senses. He's the real controller of the senses. How much can we actually control? How much is actually there if we really think about it? The conditioned living entity is always subject to 4 defects: the tendency to commit mistakes, the tendency to cheat others, the tendency to be an illusion, and the tendency is there to have imperfect senses. So it's very important that we understand this. We have imperfect senses, we have limited senses, we have limited ability to enjoy from these senses. There's a certain saturation point. It's like a sponge. You have a dry sponge, submerge it in water. The sponge is completely saturated. And unless you squeeze all of that out, then it won't be able to absorb any more water. The saturation point is finished. Nothing more can go. Similarly, in our sensory activity, there's a saturation point. Problem in modern day society is that even if we recognize that there's a saturation point of our senses, we make technological advancement so that we can increase this saturation point, actually. Therefore, there's many drugs which help us enjoy in different ways. Srila Prabhupada explains that there's even one science which there's a way that you can transplant the genitalia from a monkey into your own body so that you can enjoy sexual activity more like a monkey. So these things are going on. But actually the understanding that Krishna is the real controller of the senses and that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. This is the most important point. Actually, how much can I enjoy? My saturation point is only so much. But Krishna, he can enjoy unlimitedly. Krishna has transcendental senses where he can enjoy unlimitedly in all regard. Angani yasya sakalindriya vritti pashyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti. Krishna is, through any of his senses, he can accomplish the task of any other sense. So through his hands, he can see. Through his feet, he can taste, etc., etc., etc. We cannot do these things. Krishna is so superior and he can enjoy unlimitedly. Krishna can enjoy unlimitedly through his transcendental senses. And Krishna, it's explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that Krishna can also enjoy through the senses of all other living entities, through the bodies of all other living entities. Krishna can also enjoy through their senses. I can't enjoy through your senses. The mother, she gets some enjoyment from feeding the child, and whenever she cooks something nice, she tries to cook something nice so that the child enjoys, so that her son enjoys. And then whenever she sees that the son is enjoying the food, she gets some enjoyment. This is the closest level of understanding that how Krishna can enjoy through us, actually. The same kind of relationship, but this is perverted relationship. Krishna is able to enjoy through his devotees, actually. And this Brahmanas are known for this Bhojana Priya, very fond of eating. And it's explained that that Krishna enjoys through the Brahmanas eating. Therefore, it's a very pious activity to feed Brahmanas. This culture is still here. So Rishikesha, the master of the senses. This point that Brahman is existing in 3 different categories is very important to understand. The Mayavadis, they also say that Prakriti is Brahman, Jiva is Brahman, Purusha is Brahman, Bhagavan is Brahman, everything is Brahman, this is Brahman, you're Brahman, I am Brahman, we are all Brahman. And this is true, and this is being supported by Srila Prabhupada here. But they neglect to understand the point that within this Brahman, within this one spiritual energy, there's so much variety, actually. I think this is given in the Mahabharata. Vidura speaks like this, but I could be wrong. I don't know all of the terminology, but I'll try to explain it. Actually, no. This is given by Srila Madhvacharya in his commentary on Mahabharata, in Bhagavad Tatparya Nirnay. Madhvacharya was very interested in smashing Mayavad. So he had lots of good points we can learn from Madhvacharya how to defeat Mayavad. One of the points that he makes is that in a yajna, so there's a yajna happening. You have the yajna kund, you have the yajnik brahmana, the one who's performing the yajna. You have the tools which are being used in the yajna, like the wooden spoon and for putting the ghee. And then you have the ghee. So you have different aspects of the yajna. You have different varieties of what's going on here. And so you actually, it's explained in the Vedas that all of these things are Brahman. We're talking all of these things are actually Brahman. The person performing the yajna is Brahman. The fire is Brahman. The kunda is Brahman. The ghee is Brahman. The tool is Brahman. And yes, all of these things are Brahman, but they all have their different purposes and they all have their different uses and their different variety. And we can't deny that this variety is there. Madhvacharya makes the point that if you try to, instead of putting ghee in the fire, if you try to put the brahmana in the fire, then the yajna is finished. It's very practical. This is, you can tell this to Mayavadis. Okay, we are all Brahman, but if instead of putting, so the ghee is Brahman, the brahmana is Brahman, so why don't we put the brahmana in the fire instead of the ghee? Why doesn't the ghee put the brahmana in the fire? The ghee cannot put the brahmana in the fire, but he is also Brahman. You know, everyone understands this point. It's a very simple point, and it seems very elementary to us because this is, why are people confused about these things? But this is the most strong aspect of Maya, the last snare of Maya, Srila Prabhupada says. This is an argument that we can explain the variety within Brahman. And this variety, there's an English saying that variety is the mother of all enjoyment. And Srila Prabhupada quotes this. Variety is the mother of all enjoyment. So Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. And then Krishna, what is this? Krishna. First he was one, and then he became many. This sutra from like some Upanishad or something that Prabhupada quotes often. You know what I'm talking about? Ego, what is it? Yo vididhati kaman. So first, Krishna is one, but for the purpose of enjoyment, actually. Prabhupada explains that it is for the purpose of enjoyment. Krishna assumes the form of many. Srila Prabhupada, he once gave the example that just as Krishna has expanded himself into many for the purpose of enjoyment, similarly, I'm speaking as if I'm Srila Prabhupada, I have expanded myself as all of my disciples for the purpose of enjoyment, so that we can come together and chant Hare Krishna, take prasad together, and in this way we're enjoying so nicely. So similarly, Krishna is the same type of thing. What enjoyment would be there if there was nobody to enjoy with? Therefore, Krishna has Radha, has Balarama, has all of the Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda, you know, and he also has the spiritual, this Chintamani that the whole spiritual world is made of, the Shanta Rasa, and then also this Prakriti. Also, this Prakriti is meant to be enjoyed by Krishna. Therefore, we engage things like wood in the service of Krishna for his pleasure. So much variety is there. And if we can say everything is Brahman, you can say this, Aham Brahmasmi. You can say these things, but if we neglect to understand this variety, then we are not in real knowledge, understanding this distinction between Kshetra, Purusha, Paramatma. We don't understand these things, we're not in knowledge. So big jnanis and philosophers, they make some big show and they know many more shlokas than all of us. Obviously, I have so much struggle even remembering some of the most commonly quoted verses by Srila Prabhupada. What to speak of some of these big pundits, big jnanis. From the age of 5, 7 years old, they know the full Bhagavad Gita. They know some of the Vedas, they know Upanishads, they know all these things, but they don't know the simple point that the Jiva is the servant of the Paramatma. That Atma and Paramatma are different. They don't know this simple point. We say that these are simple points, but even for us, even for devotees, for aspiring devotees, for conditioned souls in the process of Krishna consciousness, we have to be very careful that this influence of Mayavad does not enter. It can enter in many different ways, actually. So you have to be very careful of this. And there was an instance of this back in Prabhupada's time. Prabhupada was present on this planet. And Mayavad entered his Krishna consciousness movement. Everyone knows this. Some of Prabhupada's senior sannyasi disciples started giving a message to different devotees in ISKCON that Srila Prabhupada is Krishna actually. You know, you heard about this is in Leelamrita. It's described in Leelamrita. So Srila Prabhupada was very serious about this problem. This is more serious than any kind of illicit sex or anything like that. This Mayavad will destroy everything. It is most dangerous. It's the last snare of Maya. In one place, Srila Prabhupada says that for a conditioned soul, the last snare of Maya is Mayavad. And for a devotee, the last snare of Maya is to try to become a guru. And Prabhupada said like that one time. We have to be careful of all of these things. Everyone played video games in the past? Yeah. So in the video games, you have like fights, and then at the end of a level or something, you have a boss fight, right? One devotee told me one time, it's a funny thing, but we can learn from this, that that Krishna consciousness is, so you have like Maya is that's the final snare. But then after the final snare of Maya, after this final fight with Maya, we have the boss fight. And that's in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is like the boss fight, where this is where it's time to get serious. Okay, we philosophically understand that Mayavad is not right. But after that, there's so many more things that we have to understand. We have to become a servant of Krishna, ultimately. It's the boss fight. This is the final, most important thing that we've ever done in our whole existence. We've gone through so many different lifetimes, and finally we're at the point where we're practicing Krishna consciousness. So we have to understand these things very seriously, and we can't be lazy in understanding these things. Even though the points are very technical, it might not seem so important to our personal life. We should spend time. One of the biggest excuses that we have, at least in America, and I'm sure here in India too, is that I don't have time to read these books. They don't want to buy them. Oh, I don't have enough time to read anyways, so why will I buy these books? And they see, oh, a big book. You know, I've never read such a big book in my life, people say. But we should spend time reading these books. We have so much. And this is just the very beginning. Prabhupada wanted his devotees to be conversant in all the Puranas, Mahabharata, Ramayana, Upanishads. You know, so much work is to be done. You have to understand. Sorry, I didn't leave it anytime. Does anybody have any questions, comments? No? Okay. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpataru yascha kripa sindhu vacha. Patitana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo.